So for the next hour, I'm going to hand over to Sarah Hashem, who's a creative producer at Maple Street Studios, and she'll talk to you about voice direction. But just a few points. At 3 o'clock, anyone who's staying at the hotel, your rooms are now all available, so you'll be able to collect your key cards from the desk next to reception, and they just need a credit card and your details filling in, and you're all sorted. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Sarah.
I feel like you're whooping without any due course yet. I feel a bit like it's This Is Your Life. I keep going to people, oh my God, you're here as well. I love you too. Okay, so I'm here today because in December I drank all the red wine in Belgravia and said, I've got loads to say. And I don't have huge amounts to say. And I think for those of you who have been voiceovers for years and years and years, this may be a bit repetitive and you may know it and maybe you want to check into your room or whatever, that's cool. So what I'm hoping to cover today, in less than an hour, if I'm honest, is direction tips for voiceovers, maybe direction tips for producers, if that's relevant. And then perhaps we could have, oh hi Sarah, perhaps we could have a wee chat about any horrible direction situations you've been in or brilliant direction situations you've been in. I think it's kind of the key to things going really well. Not only is you guys having brilliant voices, but knowing exactly what people expect of you. And I know that I've been in situations where clients have said to voices, that was an 8, can you give me a 6? I'm like, oh, fuck. So I guess just trying to make it really transparent and clear and hopefully helpful. Just out of interest, how many of you are producers? Yay, loads. So yeah, if it's stuff that you already know, sorry. If it isn't, cool. Okay, so voiceover-wise, again, if you're an experienced voiceover, you know this. If you're a new voice, please don't be frightened to just ask questions. Be irritating, be annoying, ask as many questions as you want to, because you find that clients and producers will have agonised over these scripts for months and weeks, and there'll be a backstory to how the campaign happened, and nobody will really fill you in on any of that stuff, and they'll just say go. So ask loads of questions. It'll help you kind of establish what you're doing a little bit better. I have lots of voices saying to me, how do I sound real? How do I not sound too projecty? Things like that. In situations like that, I guess, don't overemphasize what you're doing. Relax your body. Oh God, I think I'm talking rubbish actually. Does anybody want to jump in with anything? I don't know if I've got anything good to say, to be honest. This is very distracting. I don't even think it's connected. Let's pop that off. Right, sounding real. Okay. Don't overproject. Relax your body. Imagine you're talking to your best mate in the pub is really good advice. It's really a natural environment to find yourself in a voice booth in your house with strange padding on the walls. People just tell you to sound natural. So just imagine you're talking to your best friend in the pub, which is the best advice I can give people. I often say to people as well during natural reads, just shrug a lot. Because we never really know what we're saying in natural life, case in point. So if you're kind of shrugging as you're reading, if you're using your body, it just makes you sound a bit more normal. Don't shout as well, the microphone's already there, just relax. What else? Anybody got any questions about like natural speech or anything like that? Anybody have any trouble with that or? No? Wonderful. We're flying through this, we're absolutely flying through it. Okay, so how about character stuff? I know like a lot of you have tremendously brilliant voices, but perhaps don't have acting backgrounds. And that's really tricky because people go through your show reels and go, oh God, yeah, she's perfect, he's perfect. And then want you to be like a goat in a field talking about energy. And you're like, oh, I don't know. So does anybody have like traumas with trying to nail character stuff or find that they're asked to do it and they're not necessarily that comfortable with it? Just give me something. Okay, so anyway, if you're not an actor and you're in a situation where you need to be an actor, the key to that, appreciate no one's asked for this, the key to that is just not being afraid to make an idiot out of yourself. Really, you just need to throw your kind of, what's the word? Inhibitions Put those in your, if you're working from home, put those in your living room, and then just, it's a soundproof room. No one cares if you make a tit out of yourself, and the more free you are.
I was just going to say, they always say it's easy to pull back, but it's not easy to get you to give more.
Exactly.
The more you give, the easier it is to turn it down.
And that's what you can do, and you can practice that in your sort of day-to-day life. A really good example is people who aren't comfortable with swearing, which is probably none of us, but if you're not very comfortable with swearing, get yourself in a booth and swear loads. It's a really like Americanized idea, but if you put yourself in that environment where you're doing this thing that makes you feel a bit uncomfortable and you're recording it, the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with it. And likewise, then if a client were to say to you, I want you to be this absurd person saying this ridiculous thing, you've kind of practiced that uncomfortable feeling, and it just gets less and less as you go. That's, I think, quite a good tip. Second page. Anyone just hear guitar music? Yes. Good, not just me. Excellent. Okay. Okay, yeah. So character stuff that involves you being really over the top and flamboyant is one thing. It can be quite difficult as well to be doing character reads. I do a lot of character stuff for like public health or for the police, that will involve a slightly more sensitive read for difficult subjects, and that's really difficult as well, especially if you're doing equity stuff whereby your sessions are 15 minutes at a time. It's quite hard to then drum up that kind of character, and you know, if you're booked for the session, make sure you get the script in advance. That's really important, because if someone just sends you a script and then says, right, you've just been beaten up by your husband, that's kind of difficult. So make sure you're getting your words in advance. Ask as many questions as you can in the sessions rather. With that kind of more emotive stuff, you really want to try and get a sense of who the person is and of their lives. So the more time you've got to do that, the better, and that will really help out in the session, and hopefully you'll get some decent direction off the back of it. What I'll say to producers are, I don't want to patronise any of you, because I don't know any more than you do. That doesn't sit well with me. What I'll say to producers is, keep it really simple. And I speak to lots of voices that are like, it was impossible, they knew what they wanted, I didn't know what they wanted, and people can't articulate the simplest things. And in your copywriting, or your client will be looking for someone who's gone for a walk and is feeling this way because this happened, but also feels that way because that happened. Actually, it can just be quicker, smile, brighter. And I think to the voiceover, that's all they need. Please don't be airy-fairy and waffly-waffly, no one cares, In the session, just keep it really, really simple, because the voice is your instrument. The story will come off the back of the voice being really good. Okay.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, Susanna? Going back to natural reads, the difficulty is when it's a bit of a crap script and you wouldn't say it normally, you wouldn't say it in real life, and you're having to say...
What I would say to you...
That happened to me too.
What I would say to you is, with character stuff, especially with the kind of emotive stuff, just chuck pauses in everywhere, take your time. I know that we all suffer with like scripts being overwritten, and you guys have a horrendous time with trying to make things sound good in a really short space of time. And if you can, drop out a few conjunctions. And I think with character stuff, the producers really should be led by you as well, because if it's not something that you would say, and if it feels unnatural, then don't be frightened to say, can I change this? Yeah. Can we try that?
How much of it is written, they've signed off the script to the word, and how much,
Yeah, but I think with things that are more emotive, it's less, like the scenarios are less important. It's more that you get a kind of feel at the end of it. So, so do it their way, do it with some pauses, and then try it your way, and they'll probably go with it your way. But, you've got time in those sessions to be in charge of your script and want it to be as good as it can be. So don't be frightened, because a lot of people, I think a lot of producers as well, they're given scripts by writers, and it's got to be like that because they're the writer and I'm the producer. But actually, you're kind of the middle ground creative, where you can say, I wouldn't say that, I would say this. So, I think the more we can get in that session, the better to choose from.
One of the hardest things I find is that you've got a crap script, and you have to be natural, and you have to laugh.
It's always really weird when people say, can you laugh on that line? Really, just awful. It's not funny, and this isn't, I'm on my own in my house. That is really tricky. I think, again, you kind of have to immerse yourself into this character, and I know it's really tough if you've got crap copy, but I would always say, start off with it their way, and then make it better your way. So they've got their signed script version, and your version will invariably be better. But yeah, start off from that point and make it horrible cheesy and go, oh, you know, do all that terrible stuff. And then just offer advice, because you guys know this is your craft.
It's easier to laugh on out of breath.
Can't see your voice on the ground. I just see shoes. Say that again. Hello.
It's easier to laugh on out of breath.
Ah, worth knowing, yeah. Breathing is like the key to everything, but you know that. People don't punctuate the scripts very well. Just literally, I spend my whole sessions going, put a comma in there, put a comma in there, because commas are breathing, and you must breathe. So yeah, what this lady said, breathe and laugh, laugh and breathe. Anything else, anybody? Lady at the back.
About a lot of the reads I do are really upbeat, energetic, which kind of means for writers that they're cramming as much in as they possibly can. So this is more for when you're working on MP3. If it's 30-second ad, really you need the vocals to 28 seconds, short as possible. What happens if I can't get it any quicker than 38? And I'm talking what
Are you Anna?
acceptable is it for me to say?
Right.
It's not just for you.
It is entirely acceptable. If someone gives you a 38-second piece of copy, you are not magic. I spend a lot of my time in my job going, I cannot bend time. I am not magic. If the script is 38 seconds, it should be a comfortable 40. So you need to give it back to the copywriter and say, listen, sweet cheeks, you need to take some time out of it. Yeah. Because you'll do a horrible job and you'll hate it, and if that goes to air, a client probably won't sign off, and if it does, it makes the production house look crap, it makes the client look crap, and it makes you look crap.
But I think it's easy as a voiceover in your booth, in your own little studio, to feel insecure about speaking up and thinking, I'm the one who's failing because I'm not talking even faster than I am. So yeah, it's good.
But you can't, because you'll just sound like a crazy robot, and you have to. I mean, I say it to my writers, and I have done in my previous jobs. This is way over. You're insane.
Yes.
Because you have to be able to say to people, you need to reword this. That is their job to write for that duration. It's not your job to bend time.
I had a script the other day, it was supposed to be 30 seconds, and no matter how fast I did it, it kept coming out at 42.
So it was an overwritten 40.
Yeah. And I said, right, I'm going to time this again, bang, and I was like,
But can you imagine hearing that on the radio? Who knows what that's for?
no, I just had to send it to him back as 42.
Yeah.
I said, look, no matter how much I did it, and I did it, I said, could get it down.
And the annoying thing about that for a producer is they'll put the writer will go, okay, we'll take that line out and we'll tweak that and we'll do that. And then you just get, and perhaps we'll try and slow it down a bit, but really, because you've been reading so quickly, I can't make you sound good.
No.
So I'd rather give you the right duration and you just do a really good job on it.
Or
So-
they'll edit it to within an inch of its life.
Exactly.
So it overlaps.
But because the product started so quickly, there's not a lot I can do with it.
I think there's a lot of scripts out there which are so badly overwritten, and something I always encourage our writers to do is when that does happen, put client written at the top of all their scripts. It makes people know it's not my fault, and it makes people know it's not the writer's fault. So, and I think it's a lot easier on the voiceover. People who work with me will be quite familiar with my direction, just to make it go away.
Make it go away.
Sometimes that's what you have to do, and I think you can't be too hung up when you get those scripts. You just got to make them go.
Yeah, and if you can't make them go away, then you send them back to the person who gave it to you and say, less words, copywriter, please, because you can't. You can't do it.
I did recently invite one of our writers to come into the voice booth and actually read his own script at a time and turn me down.
That's actually a really good idea. Yeah. Here, Mr. Client, you try it.
If any voiceover has an outburst and starts getting a bit upset, I've occasionally recorded that and sent that off to the writer.
Well, don't tell them now. You've told them all. They thought they trusted you, Ben.
Because I like it. It's fine because however sweary the voiceover gets, I can put it up to the writer and say I don't get paid enough to deal with this shit.
Yeah. But within reason, like our job is to make it sound good, and the writer, it's for the writers to make enough copy, and you're the talent, and you can't do your job if we don't give you the right duration script. It's very simple. Or if we give you really poor direction, that's not helpful. So you need to kind of take ownership of that as well. I mean, hopefully you'll be in situations where you'll have great direction, you'll have great scripts, but if you don't, you need to pipe up because it's your product as well. So don't be frightened to take a bit of ownership over those sessions. You don't have to be like a rude arsehole. Just be articulate and be assertive.
It's much more fun though,
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I know. Yeah, anybody else? Any gripes?
Characters, if you're just not quite getting that sort of feeling you want in the voice, it'd be interesting to know what people think. If, for example, as a producer, you role play the character to them and then get them to say it back. Is that good to do, or does people tend to...
Yeah, do you guys find that annoying? I never know. Like if we go, do it like this.
There's no right or wrong way. At the end of the day, the producer's job is to get the best out of the voice. So if that means they need to dictate it and show where they want the emphasis to be, then I wouldn't take it.
Yeah, I would agree. But
A producer that just sits there. That you literally come online and you say hi and that's it. And then oh no, off you go. That's the worst thing ever for no reason. For a voiceover to get absolutely no interaction at all. So
yeah, I would imagine. But I guess that you would say, Mel, like, how do you want it? Is it warm? Is it happy? Is it... But the weird thing about all these crazy adjectives is they're incredibly subjective. So what I might think is like warm and happy and steady, somebody else might think is cool and sexy. And so it's worth. The words are almost kind of meaningless. They vary session to session. But yeah, I think you kind of want those bullet points of style, of pace.
And you want someone to come back and say, actually, that was crap. Because at least that, you set your line and haven't you? So don't get any worse than that. Hopefully then you can lift it. So no, it's good. It's good for you.
Or just, sometimes I listen to a take and I just do a weird pause afterwards. And the voiceover goes, you didn't like that, did you? Sorry, I don't think that's fine.
I've got an opinion on your question there. I'm a voice director for the gaming industry, and I kind of find that if I have to feed you the line the way I want it done, either I'm not doing my job right, or you're not doing your job right, and that's you should never get to that point. Do it like this, if you see what I mean. So I think you should be able to do it yourself. And I personally don't like it when I see directors saying, okay, I want it to go, now deliver it like that, or however.
I guess it's like a black and white thing, isn't it? Because to me...
You're voice actors, and you're supposed to be good at your job, and I don't mean to be harsh like that, but if you're not getting what you need, then you need to ask the voice director exactly what he wants. Because if you're just feeding lines at them, it's just going to demotivate you as a voice talent.
I think it's relative though, because I think that I think half the room would agree with that, but I think half would maybe disagree because...
I think it's a team. You have to work
yeah.
together.
So that's the ideal. I think that's the ideal.
The ideal is that... Yeah,
but the truth is, if you're delivering what can be quite banal copy quite quickly and the producer's got other shit to do, just getting it done quickly is a pretty important factor. It's not Shakespeare. I mean, we're not creating a character going away and studying a certain thing. Well,
it's more tricky with character stuff because you want to have more time to spend on it, ideally. And I think if I put myself into a voiceover's position, if I was like trying really hard just to nail a character in and not quite getting it, and I think as long as your accent's right and your pitch is kind of right, I wouldn't mind being told, stress that, can I have it more like this? I think that would help me. But I guess it's relative.
I don't mean stress certain points. I mean actually feeding you lines and getting you to repeat.
Oh yeah, I mean horrendous. That would take twice as long, if nothing else. Yeah, I think you have to get people to be free with their own character. But I think as well, particularly with gaming or with like heavily, the character has to be this because he looks like that. I think it can be really helpful to get those kind of clients this. But there's always kind of give and take, and every situation is different. But ask, don't be frightened to ask. You're not working for people, you're part of the project.
So how much information do you get from a producer in terms of character? So you'd be given a script, would you say that, do you have to work from the script and that's it? Or,
no, definitely not.
Or will they say, okay, this character is X, Y, Z, come back with what you...
It really varies, and you probably won't have as much time as you like on it. You might just be given the script 10 minutes beforehand, but your script may say domestic violence, and there's not, even if the client probably won't know the full backstory because they've just written it down. They want her to sound upset. So it's kind of then for you to go, okay, well maybe she looks like this, and maybe this has happened, and if that helps you to create someone else for you to be, then you kind of need to almost take it upon yourself in those situations to really make the most out of it, because you're not always going to get it from clients. Sometimes you will, but I would say more often than not, you need to kind of conjure that yourself a little bit.
I think as an actor, if you have banked as many characters as possible in your repertoire, then because if it is that instantaneous, bang, it's there.
And you can be doing it every day. You can be going to the shops as one person. You can practice. You can make yourself feel uncomfortable and embarrassed, which is the best way I think to get over kind of weird acting fears. the more you practice being uncomfortable, I think the better you'll be in character reads.
What if you just get talking toaster, which is what I got the other day?
Talking toaster, and I bet it was brilliant.
Just be a talking toaster.
Can you do it now?
No, I can't remember what I did, but it was just, well, do I just...
I mean,
Make it
as
up.
direction, that's a bit pants, isn't it?
Yeah, talking toaster, I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah, of course it could be.
It's open-ended, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
open-ended.
So is the client saying to you, you interpret that, or are they saying to you, that's why you've got it all wrong? The toaster doesn't sound like that.
No, they just put talking toaster, I did it, send it back, and it was approved.
See, that's it. If you can just think, I'm going to be quirky in this moment, but I think if you get a client saying, oh no, that's not Timmy Toaster, then you just need to, they need to pipe up a bit more. Yeah, exactly. That's when you ask questions. But
when
really,
they talk to you, the toaster's in your kitchen, you
Yeah.
tell me what they sound like.
exactly. Dip out my crumbs. Exactly. Yeah.
Isn't that like a voice on a timer? Is that what they mean by that? It's like, okay, you whack the bread in, you've got 20 seconds and it has to be finished.
See, I think it's really relative, that character stuff. So you probably just had a go at being like quite a chirpy toaster
Chirpy
bloke.
thing, depending
Yeah.
upon what the script was.
But there might be someone else who's like a miserable toaster who's had a really terrible time because everyone's using the grill. You know, like it's all relative. Yeah. So yeah, there's no black and white to character stuff. Just have a go and then ask loads of questions.
One man's toaster is another man's microwave.
Yeah.
Pardon? I reckon his production.
I said one man's toaster is another man's microwave.
Absolutely. I heard this week that you can make bacon sandwiches in the microwave.
And you haven't tried it out?
Who knew? I don't know what am I doing here. Anybody else got any weird bits they want to chip in with, or strange direction stories, or?
I think it's also the situation sometimes the producer will get given a script and we haven't got a clue. You know, it will come, it's the client idea or some weird idea. And sometimes you just have to give it to someone who is good at doing characters and not give them any clues. And it's not necessarily, you know, sometimes we do have a clue, sometimes we don't, but it's nice just to get someone's perspective, because I tend to, rather than over-direct, just jump straight in and get on with it, and then take that first read and say, right, we'll change this and we'll do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice, you know, we're looking for just a non-biased view.
Isn't that what he was saying earlier about like the fact that it's a bit sort of, well, you know, got the character script, you may not have a clue as to assemble. That's the actor's job
Yeah.
to interpret it.
We have faith in
It's always
you.
a collaboration, I think.
Yeah.
I think some voiceovers are afraid to stand up and say, oh, can I try one like this? And as a producer, I like it because, you know, we all have our shitty off days, and sometimes it's nice when someone does something and think, oh yeah, that's exactly it, thanks very much.
See, I think you guys like getting really good direction, but we like it when you ask questions as well. So it's got to be a collaborative thing. Those are the best projects, when you can be kind of making up as you go along, changing bits together.
I think what you were saying at the beginning about not having any inhibitions, because at the end of the day we're just in our own booth, there's no one around. And
Naked, usually.
generally, so I got asked to play a superhero pig.
Brilliant.
And,
Why wouldn't
and
you?
The result was just ludicrous because you just go for it and you have fun with it.
This is it.
And what comes out, and you just think, what a laugh that was.
How many normal people would love to be able to spend some time in soundproof rooms? You guys can do what you want, it doesn't matter.
And we do.
Yeah. But, you know, be a superhero pig. Who cares? Just have a go. And I think the more you give us, like you were saying, it's easier to go hard and then us to bring you back than to just trying to crank up enthusiasm. So just go nuts. No one's bothered.
I had some good direction a couple of days ago from somebody in this room to take your hands off when you're recording.
Stop with all the jargon, Della, Jesus. What is this can? So how was that helpful? How did that make it different?
Because I had my sound up too much on my earphones. I was listening to myself, I was too conscious of what I was saying.
Okay.
And I was
Yeah.
kind of, you know.
Yeah, and then
That's a really good shout.
I start to over-articulate things. If I can hear myself, anyway, it's all to you in everyday conversation. You are running words into one another.
Yep.
You can understand yourself, and other people can understand you. So why doesn't that translate? I then, if I can hear myself, think you then try and oh God, no, I fudged that word a little bit.
Yeah.
Take your headphones off, it can free you up.
That's a really good shout for character stuff.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry.
I came across much more, I wasn't projecting myself unnaturally. I was actually putting myself into it without being too conscious of myself.
I think that's a really good shout as well, because a lot of character stuff, I just want you to be a woman, I don't want you to be a voiceover, and I think that's actually really, really good advice for character reads. Where are you, Simon? Well done, nice hat. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good shout for character stuff. And likewise, conversely, with silly stuff, I guess it might be really helpful to hear yourself go for it. But I think it's a lot of people find it really hard to kind of do the kind of off-mic introverted thing, because when you see a microphone, surely you should speak loudly. But actually, the most effective, the most powerful character stuff is me talking to you without that, just talking normally.
Yeah, it can be useful for the natural thing as well, to
Absolutely.
take your headphones off when you've been asked to do
Yeah.
it natural. Don't sound like a voiceover, take your headphones off, that can really help.
Top tip.
If we were pre-recording a radio show, Simon and I, when we would just chat, we would often do it without headphones.
Really?
Because it does, you've got, subconsciously, you've got an umbilical cord coming from your thing, plugged into the desk, and you are suddenly in radio, and you're on the radio. Take them off, you just chat.
It's like we're talking now.
Yeah, like do podcasts.
I mean, it's also
That's a really good shout for podcasts.
Some people don't like it.
You know, some people don't like the concept of pre-recording radio shows in the first place, but do you know what I mean? It's just it can, like you say, free you up.
Yeah, and I think certainly in terms of podcasts and your natural style character stuff, that's much more engaging to like listeners, to normal people, is not being talked at. We find a lot of cases where clients will say, I want that to be natural, but actually they're just me, and they want you to sound like a mad salesperson, and whereby just keep your cameras on. But I think, yeah, for the really natural stuff, for the conversational stuff, for podcasting and pre-radio shows, that makes total sense and is a really, really good shout.
I was going to say, I think what you were talking about, when the thing is, it's a bit frustrating with clients. They want something to sound natural, and you get a voiceover, it's playing natural. And
They don't mean it.
Yeah, can it be a bit more like this tone natural?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
If saying between the lines, you actually have a conversation with the VO and be like, oh, so what did you do today? Blah, 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 how was it? And then they'll reply to you. If you role play with them, I found we can get more natural results out that way.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
The most common issue I find with the client script is when they're asking you to do a read that's absolutely counter to the content of the script. Namely, the biggest one I find is when they have a script that's rammed full of very high pressure salesy bullet points, or it's full of technical jargon, and they say, it sounds like you're a salesman, or it sounds like you're giving a technical read of all that you do or don't understand it. It's how to say to them, well, it's not just the fact that there's a line that's rammed full of jargon, it's the fact that someone's written this to try and cram a lot of things to
it's all
persuade
just
someone to
salesy bullet points.
Yeah, they're saying, can you tell the voiceover artist, it doesn't sound like a guy talking to his friend in the pub.
God, it happens all the time. Yeah.
Someone's written to try and sell a product. So they're asking you to read to do something that's
It's really hard. It's really hard, and you'll feel like an idiot when you do it. I've had people, and I've had to make them say, "No, Barbara. Oh my goodness, look at your windows," and it's ludicrous. We all know that it's ludicrous. And the best bet is just to have a really nice producer. I mean, when I make ads like that, I'm apologising quite a lot, as you would expect, and just to kind of almost in those situations, you want to kind of ignore the content and just go for tone, and it'll feel really alien, and that's because it's written badly and the brief is wrong. So that's not you. I think the key to kind of from my personal experiences, I tend to direct in a kind of, I don't know, like a sort of, I try and use, like you were saying with the conversation, you'll work off a relationship with people. So I try and get on with people really well, and then there's just a nice feeling in the session, and we'll just have a go, and we'll have another go. But things like, I want someone to sound like they're being nice to the elderly, or they're in a warm, fuzzy state. Imagine you're wearing a woolly cardigan. And silly things like that really help people. Shrug as you're talking. Put people in human situations, and it kind of gives you that dimension of reality and warmth that you need. If you just kind of be like, well, imagine your boyfriend did this, now read that. It really helps for producers as well. Just make it relative to daily life, as opposed to going, can you stress this, and can I have that second phrase intonate? Doesn't mean anything. Just make it sound normal.
Also, we were talking about this on the train on the way up. There's a cultural difference as well, and you want the natural read, or the British version of the natural read is probably quite different from an American version of the natural read. There might be
do you do American voices or American clients?
I do stuff all over the world, and I do find, they'll come in and they'll say, I want this to be natural, and then you record it, and you'll think you've nailed it, and then I'll come back and say, bit more energy, a bit
Yeah,
more interest.
that's really tricky because it's like it's so subjective to. I mean, certainly like to different parts of the world, it's very, very different. And I was looking at different voiceover workshops to try and get me to be less crap at this bit, and it makes you think that the way we are as British people is a lot more kind of withdrawn and with, you know, yeah, not slightly depressed. That's what the bar's for. But I think the American idea is certainly more projected, is certainly more enunciated. You know, where we were doing natural reads, we might flow words together, or you know, just make it feel everything tends to be much more hard hitting. And I have American scripts where the caveat might be 15 seconds, and they're not really asked about duration, just make it fit. Whereas I wouldn't normally. I want for RACC purposes the caveat to be clear, you know, sped up but clear. Whereas they're happy to squish it to fook. And the styles are different in every nation, so you just need to speak to your clients and just get a really clear idea. Things like that as well. Don't be frightened to go onto YouTube and look at American ideas and American clients that might have British voices. That's quite a good tool.
And can you be less British? You sound less British. They booked you because you're a British voiceover. Can you be less British? That's all it is.
I have no idea what that means. I have no. Can you be? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, are there any of you guys that do stuff? Do any of you guys do stuff for America and they say, apart from you, has anybody got ways around that of sounding more neutral? Because I would have no idea.
I don't know. I do quite a lot of stuff as a British voice for American clients, but I find a problem with the whole concept of can you do a British voice? Because there are a lot of accents in Britain, so you kind of try and pin them down to what part of Britain, what a social class, what a perception they want. But they just want a British voice. They have a kind of, it's either John Cleese or David Attenborough, one or two voices that have this idea, but there's a lot of variety.
So maybe you almost want to spoof British accents and try and find the one they want, because we know the nuances of our dialects and of our accents, but I don't think they do from my own experience. So I think you will probably want to hit 3 different, very different styles. Maybe just do like a paragraph and say which one.
I find it useful if a client isn't able to articulate verbally what they want to say. Can you send me a YouTube link to a clip that sounds like it?
Yeah, exactly.
That way I'm hearing it and I'm replicating an audio thing rather than a description. Like I said earlier, people's descriptions of things are quite subjective. Does this sound like?
Yeah, if you, especially
the responsibility of sending me a clip.
Especially if your client is international, it's a very good idea. Yeah.
I did a medical narration for somebody in America, and in the end, what I did was change the pronunciation of certain words. So instead of saying laboratory, I said laboratory.
Yeah.
Just a few key words.
That's a very good idea, yeah, because there's a lot of slightly different accent things that will be more familiar to an American ear. It's a really good idea.
I was going to say I'm American and I don't know what that means. I don't know, but I think from the American perspective is just like you were saying, it's Americanizing the words more than the accent, is changing the emphasis and the delivery on those.
Yeah, well, I'm lucky I've got an American partner.
Oh, okay, well there you go.
I'm able to say, well, what would you think with this?
That's lucky, very lucky. Let's all marry Americans, yeah.
It's the only way forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that with Southern voices. I used to work in the Northwest and I was constantly saying, can you say Bath? Sorry, I know it's weird. Because there is just kind of turn off to that sound in different regions. So yeah, it's the same sort of thing, yeah. Anybody else? Scenarios, Q&As, anything?
Pronunciation is probably the one thing, the ones we have the most.
Okay.
You get a company name, and they work for the company, so they know how to say it. Or they don't tell you how to say it. Or they work in seven different countries, and they go, or the cities, and they go, how to say it? And I'm looking at it, and I had one this week, it was somewhere in the Far East. And I looked at it and thought, well, I can't tell whether that's a silent K on the front or if that's not.
Impossible.
I googled it, before I sent it over.
There's 2 great websites there, How Jay Say, one of my favourites for pronunciations, and Foremost great for locations.
What was the other one, Guy?
How Jay Say. How Jay Say in Volvo, apparently.
He's recorded.
I've just got a microphone.
Yeah, it sounds everywhere.
Or if I can't find
They
soon come back with pronunciation. If they need quick enough, they'll soon come
obscure kind of corporate companies tend to have obscure corporate videos on YouTube, and that tends to be my backup when I'm in sort of slightly panicked moments. Yeah.
By the same token, you get some producers who jump the gun by just spelling things phonetically for you, in brackets.
Yeah.
So they, you know, because they know that it's not obviously apparent to them.
That's what you want, though, isn't it?
You know, they'll do a bit
That's
of,
what, yeah, that's the key.
Some have even recorded MP3s for me and sent it with the script saying, yeah, just a word on pronunciation, it's pronounced like this.
That's over-delivering production.
That's
That's
over-delivering, but it's
amazing.
fantastic.
I don't do that. That's great.
Yeah.
And they will do exactly
It's same
That's
thing,
brilliant.
same thing.
when people write things out phonetically for an odd word, it can actually be wrong. It's not how I would interpret
Yeah.
it. Your ows and your oohs and everything, and they've written out, think, well, that's obvious, and then I phone up and say, is it like this? And I say, no. Oh, I see.
So yeah, so it's again, it's like asking questions for new voices.
To speed
Ask.
or get the audio.
Or if in doubt.
Yeah, if
you
in
give
doubt,
them
don't
You
guess.
give them options, you give them their way and then you give them the right way.
Yeah, because I've done that before. There's been voices. Thank you, Mel. There's been like crazy pronunciations where I've just guessed and guessed and guessed, and actually there's like a silent K somewhere. So you know, ask clients, YouTube, communication.
Someone said on a forum once that what they tend to do by experience is give it 5 or 6 different tries and send the client 5 or 6 different pronunciations. Say it could work, but they could all be wrong.
Yeah, you can do that, but
Yeah,
just make a phone call.
exactly. That's what I say.
Yeah,
Just
I
make
mean
a
you can wing it, but how annoying if you've mixed down 3 versions and it's still not right.
I've been known in the past for my studio to phone the actual company. When they answer, you go, hello, Aranici. I'm like, nice one.
Yeah, that's a again, brilliant. Yeah.
Receptionist, lovely.
Yeah, and then the client thinks that you're some sort of amazing wonder linguist. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Phone the company. Speak to the receptionist and hang up on her.
It's often, that's often
Yeah,
what
exactly.
they do, because
Yeah.
sometimes it takes ages for you to go to your client, for them to go to their client, and
Of
then
course, yeah.
you might as well have run them and got it done.
Yeah, be efficient. Yeah, take the football by the horns yourself because everybody's busy, and this is a list of a load of jobs that everybody's, that producers have that day. You want to make it as good as you can do, so you kind of need to take ownership of it a little bit.
There is the Accent Archive as well, I don't know if it's been mentioned, that has one phrase said by people from all around the world, like please ask STEM or something like that. So you pin on a flag on a map, and it goes to someone from that area saying the same phrase. So I found that useful.
That sounds useful for people who are doing like international stuff or accents and stuff.
Accent Archive, just Google that. Something like gmu.edu or something like that.
I think with accents as well. I mean, that sounds really useful, but like the more you practice accents, the better. Use them all the time. Go to the supermarket and be Scottish. Practice them is the key to success with accents. Anybody else?
Quite interested to know if you would know anything about research into listeners and to what people are actually receptive to. We were talking earlier about how much you can fit into 30 seconds, how many words you can fit into 30 seconds. I'm wondering if there's any sort of guideline.
I don't know if there's a black and white thing. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. I think it might be good if there was some sort of guideline. Because if you were sent, you had like 1,000 words to do in 30 seconds, like impossible.
I think, yeah.
So then you have this guideline, you can go back to them and say, actually, the audience aren't going to be receptive to this. There's been this research that
There's
suggests...
no research that I'm aware of, but I think because it's not a finite thing, because the things that we're selling are so different, or making people aware of are so different, you may want like a really sparse 30-second script that has hardly any words in it, that maybe focuses on music or sound effects, or you may want like a nicely paced one that's completely dry. So to me, like the overall sound of the ad is more important than the amount of words in it.
But yeah, I'm solely talking about the amount of words. If there was some sort of
there may well be. I'm not aware of it. Yeah.
It is very black and white. You don't do a word count all the time. It's just completely wrong. I always any writer who says, "Oh well, I did a word count. It's going to be 30 seconds." I'll say to them, "Right, you read it now, and you read it out loud as you want to do it." It's very very famously, one of our writers once did something, and he wanted that nice, cool M&S when I think Sterling Cohen did. He wanted that M&S read, and it was about 10-15 seconds over. And he'd obviously done it by word count, and when we said to him, did you not do this, he actually did say, well, I didn't realise if you wanted a smooth, slow read, I'd have to put less words in.
This is what you're dealing with.
See, it all boils down to writers. How much training do you guys give back to your writers?
We give lots of feedback, don't we? Ben and I used to work together.
I've just had, way we do our training, because there is 6 of us in one production department, so we've just had a new guy in Thursday, Friday for training. He'll spend a couple of hours with each of us, and we have this checklist to go through. And it's the same checklist, and we go through it all, and the thing which mentions about 3 times each hour is don't override. And we'll always, it will happen, you know, clients will always stick an extra phone number in, and someone earlier said write to, 10% under, which is what we always tell people. But again, it's just, shit happens. Our sales teams are so up against it at the minute to hit their targets, and I think that's just everyone in the entire industry beyond that. A lot of times things are being sold which maybe shouldn't be in the state that they're being sold in.
People, I think a lot of people, but like you say, because they're up against time constraints, will just take a press ad and turn it into a radio ad. We all know that, and that's
briefs. Just like,
yeah, you might as well just give me the newspaper and I'll make it. So that, I mean, that's nonsense. And I think as well, instead of word count being relative to duration, like syllables are often more relevant than words. But it's not the way we work, because it makes it almost a bit more formulaic than it should be.
Sure.
Yeah.
But maybe there should be some sort of cap on the amount of words that you can fit.
Well, really, your copywriters should know that.
Because I'm talking, because if an audience isn't going to be able to listen to, if there's research that suggests the audience isn't, they're not even going to hear it.
Yeah,
and
I
that
think
could be a consideration. That's all. More in terms of capping the amount of words within.
I think the RAB, I don't know if you guys have ever done the RAB website, they do quite a lot of research, and that tends to be more along the lines of where to use phone numbers, where to use websites, how to use music, how to make the campaigns work across different platforms, as opposed to word count. But it might be worth looking on that website anyway, just to get a bit more idea of some the research that has been made, about radio ads. That might be more useful. But as far as I know, there isn't a quantitative, correlation piece of research or anything. Anybody else? Hello.
I've just had a job that I actually went and did, and then was told by my agent that they decided to go with an older voice, and they feel now that I don't sound like my demo, and are disputing paying the session fee.
Okay.
And I'm just interested to know, I've done every demo, and I've never had anybody say that otherwise. And I just wondered if there was that. Well, any advice, I suppose, from I don't know whether there was something on the demo that they decided wasn't.
I'm really crunchy, I don't know why. Karen.
I'm just curious to know whether, as a producer, halfway through the session they were saying to me sound more gruffy, which is rubbish in some respects of what we
Yes, it's not the best, is it?
And then to hear that they then went older, is that something that you would...
Sometimes you get that. Sometimes clients will say, this is not what I wanted at all, and it's worth, from the one point of view, it's worth listening through your show reels. Sometimes I'll play people their show reels back just so they can kind of mirror them. But if you've been cast in that, has it gone to air or anything, or they've just changed their mind midway through?
I don't think it's gone to air, but I know that they've gone with a different voice. But it's more that they're now disputing even the session fee. When I went and did it on the understanding having the job,
yeah.
The reason being that I didn't sound like the demo when it's clearly me that on paid jobs throughout the demo.
So really, yeah, it's really tricky with that with a kind of stylist voice thing. It's really tricky because from a production point of view, if the client's not happy, you just want, the voice that goes to air will get paid. However, I would pay maybe not the full fee, but I would pay an amount to the first voice. But that's just, again, there's no black and white to that. I don't know what you would do in that situation. I think each production house is quite different.
Sorry, I want this to
Ben Davis. We were saying, if you've got a voice in is it like an agency session or something, and the client says after the session, actually I don't want that, I want to use a mature voice. And it hasn't gone to air.
It hasn't gone to air. Well, our scripts say very clearly at the bottom there is a voice in this, you are agreeing to do it for X amount of money. And there has been an instance where, we did something for quite a big station, or quite a lot of stations, and the client hated it. And I think that was largely down to the client just being off, but we had to add voiceovers. They've done it.
If they choose a voice, they choose a voice.
Yeah.
They get paid a session fee.
Exactly.
The usage they then don't have to.
Yeah, exactly, that's right.
The session fee have to, it's through an agent or something.
That's right, yeah.
You need to get your fee for that session.
Yeah, you don't get the fee for the transmission.
Speak to Andrew at Equity, if you're a member of Equity, then that's something you can go to Equity and they'll deal with it.
Yeah, makes sense.
I've had an occasion on only 3 times out of 140 games where
we've been halfway through a session and it's become apparent that the voice, it's not going to work. So I've actually stopped the session. And in those cases, I've paid them around about half, basically for their time. I don't think I was under any obligation to, well, not a voice, another obligation to pay them. However, for all of my work that I do, I have a signature before I start the work, so maybe you could do that as well.
Yeah.
That's an agent thing, just your agent.
Yeah, exactly. You pay people for their time, but maybe not, like you say, not for the output, for where it's going, or for the the broadcast fee. Yeah, anybody else?
I think I'd like to say something about the different kind of aspects of work. In the same way that theatrical acting is very different to film acting, and in the theatre you're much more expressive, and you're everything is kind of OTT almost in the way you feel. Same kind of goes for different types of VO. I mean, I've noticed that this conversation is kind of towards commercial and radio stuff. In the gaming side of things, it's very different, and we actually really want you to over-project an awful lot of the time.
Yeah.
And you'll find yourself constantly being told, project more, project more, project more, project more. And it's because of the different types of mediums. In gaming, you don't quite know what's going to happen at any point because it's not a linear thing. So you might have at some point some underscore going and some explosions going. And your voice needs to be able to get over that once it's normalised and compressed and not completely duck out of it. So they are, I just wanted to make the point that
absolutely,
it's
I totally
not
agree.
all,
we're not all going to be
mediums are the
doing,
same.
we're not all going to be doing like really sad police ads, and certainly for gaming it's a really good example of close the booth and don't be frightened to make a tit out of yourself and just go for it. You're in a soundproof room, nobody will know. I think, and then your directors, your producers will take you from there. You have to be willing to just lose your inhibitions and just go for it. Stefan.
What advice would you give to, and I don't know if anybody else has experienced, client-led sessions where producers lose the ability to speak and
producers do too.
Make the talkback keys. You left for 30 seconds there, and well, what happened?
Yeah.
I did a session yesterday with a brand that I don't want to name because one of their producers is here, but we had the writer and the producer in the studio together, and they couldn't agree because the producer, who does it for a living, had a very fixed view on how he wanted it, and when he's looking at me.
Nobody look at Stefan. Nobody look at him. Or everyone look at him.
He had a really fixed view of how he wanted the script, and he wanted a natural read. But the writer had written it in a way that he wanted a really salesy, ballsy kind of read.
It's so weird they couldn't talk about that before the session.
The session, which was for 2 scripts, was an hour. No shit. A whole hour we spent going through
Just 2 30-second scripts.
For 2 30-second scripts. How, in that situation, because generally, and I'm sure most of the VOs in here will agree, you build a relationship with that producer and you trust that producer and they trust you. When a third party comes in, it really complicates things.
It's really difficult.
How, as a voiceover, do you think we should best deal with that situation when clearly we're frustrated, clearly the producer's frustrated, but naturally we don't want to give a bad account of ourselves and hopefully keep them as a client, providing they don't work out.
In that situation,
about them right now.
like in that situation, you're the expert and the producer is the expert, and if you feel awkward, we feel awkward. But because Mr. Client is there, or the copywriter is best friends with the client whose cousin is there, sometimes you have to do things that are just a bit pants. And certainly in situations where copywriters and producers are having disagreements in sessions, that should never happen, because that's a conversation outside 5 minutes before, and that's just unprofessional. So sometimes you just have to kind of wing it through that, because that's not your problem, that's their problem. Go for it.
What I've found, depending if I've worked with a voice for quite a bit, and then that is said we've already got that relationship, I'll actually let them know when booking them, listen, the client's
this is going to be a bit,
with that. Although I have heard, apparently, that some voiceovers will charge extra just because there's a client seeing it on the
It's not some voiceovers choosing to do that, but that's what equity suggests you should do.
Yeah, there's an equity minimum.
They're not doing it out just because they feel like it.
But I think if you've got a client present, you would always tell a voiceover beforehand, there's a client present, I know the equity fee is X, can we maybe do this?
Well, I try and sort of, it works both ways, because I'll sit down with the writer and say, So they're coming in and they'll give me the script. I'll be like, all right, cool. And whenever I get something, I sort of visualize it in my head. So I hear it in my head, and I act it. And then I'll sort of sit down with the client and say, look, are you happy for it to be like da-da-da-da-da? And then I'll start the voiceover. Like, I think communication on that front is really important.
It's the key, yeah. And if you find Steph, like if you've got the producer saying, I want it really natural and pull back, and the client's like, no, sell my beds, then just do the version that you and the producer know what is going to be ace. Do their terrible version. The producer will mix down both. You've covered your ass. It's not necessarily going to be an enjoyable experience. It might take an hour, and everybody. I find myself sending a lot of apology emails to voiceovers after sessions like that, going, oh, I'm so sorry. But it's almost better to cover your ass and just do loads of different versions. And then for us, it's more work for us, but it saves things in the long run. So yeah, sometimes they happen, and the best thing is just to give the crazy people what they want.
You feel the frustration as well.
You can tell. I mean, we can feel it across the ISDN line, and especially when you spend your career making really good relationships with people and really valuing their talent and valuing your relationships and making the ads as good as you can. When someone else comes in and says crazy things, you feel it in the room, but they're paying. Everybody's money is valuable, and advertising is a big risk now, more than ever. So that's relative, that's his kid's money. So we'll just have a go and see how it goes.
I think when, I find when I've been in situations like that, I find quite often a good kind of distraction or icebreaker, if you like, if you feel the client and the producer are disagreeing, is I usually say, especially if I've heard it back and it's clear the ad's not working, is to then say, can I just try something?
Yeah.
Because you feel all those voices, you've got a good instinct, don't you? And you know instinctively what's going to work in the script and what isn't. And usually that's when the client hears what you as the craft do with the script, and quite often 9 times out of 10 they will then say, actually that works.
Yeah, exactly.
It can diffuse.
It's a really good point. Yeah, don't be frightened to, you're the experts in your field. We try our best, but it's your voice.
I just don't think we always feel that way, though.
Pardon?
Well, I don't think we always feel that way.
But you should, because the reason...
Just because naturally we're reliant on you to feed us the work, so I think I don't know about you guys, maybe you're more confident about it than I am, but generally sometimes I feel like I really don't want to fuck this up because you won't use me again, and then the next box, why you would lose again. Maybe you'll use me and maybe you won't.
It's really hard, day to day I'll have a script that wants... a young girl to voice a script, or I want someone commercial and selly, or I want someone female and young. Day to day, I'm not going to get the same script for you all the time. I'm just not. But when I do, I'll use you because I rate you, because I think you're good at your job. So if you don't get used for ages, it's because there's that much variety in the work that comes in and out of production houses. It's not, and if you're doing, hopefully in a session, you'll be getting the feedback you need so that the product's where it should be. And if you're not, that's not necessarily a slight on you. It may just be that you're not getting what you need from a copywriter or a producer. You just need to have a bit more confidence. Oh.
Something that was touched on before was about client sessions and shutting down the talkback. And I always find that when clients are talking to the producer, and
you want to hear that as well.
Yeah, desperately, because the conversation that they're having naturally is much more useful than what the kind of gibberish they're going to give you over the talkback.
Totally. And I'll normally do, if that happens, is say like, okay, what we've been saying is this, and that. But so it's worth saying, if you're having an aside conversation with a client, it's really useful to avoid, just put it in lay terms, what's going on, what can change, what can be better.
I just say as a producer, sometimes not putting the talk back is to kind of control what the client says. They're not always the most kind of sensitive and wanting to protect you guys a little bit and kind of relate in a much nicer way.
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So not
you're like, don't insult my mate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think as a producer, what I've seen so many times when we've had voiceovers come into Nottingham to do like a link with London, and I'm listening in to make sure everything's all right, and then the talkback just goes dead for 5 minutes. And when they come back on, it's the client with the agent talking, his voice is looking through the glass, getting that. I think as a producer, you have to take control.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I will say, we're just going to turn the talkback off and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And as long as you are letting the voiceover know that you're doing that, rather than buggering off.
Yeah. Treat people like people. Let's just be polite and inform each other. Yeah.
And most clients.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want you to feel weird. This is happening. Don't worry about it. I'll let you know when it's fine again. But just yeah, it makes things. I think it must aid paranoia. So yeah, it's cool.
Clients can't direct voices either. That's not something they do on a daily basis. And even when we have writers in the studio, sometimes you've got to translate what they're saying into the language of directing voiceover.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
you turn the talk back off, you have a chat with the client, and then come back and say, right, what we've decided is this, that, and the other, rather than the client spending 5 minutes trying to explain, do that bit smoother, you can just go, do that bit smoother,
Yeah.
and then...
So all we can do in that situation is say we're just going to pop the talk back off because, and all that means in brackets is the client's being mental. So then, and then we'll bring the talk back and we'll explain it to you in a way that means you can do your job really well and you won't have to sit through this bizarre waffle. So actually,
It's not personal, is it? So you've just got to sit there and
Exactly.
you're at the end of the day, you've been employed to offer a service, not
So-
there because they like you.
but yeah, I think I have to wind up now. I think the key is just ask questions, have confidence, yeah, and speak to each other as well. Don't be frightened to do that, and just give me a shout if you need to.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
everyone.